In the world of a modern golfer, the one thing we are definitely not short of is information. Information about how to improve your golf game is everywhere. You could find that information from a professional at your local golf club or driving range. You could find that information from your mates who think they know what they're talking about. You could certainly find all information through the internet. The one danger that I see a lot of golfers doing now is they get down a rabbit hole of maybe too much information and not well constructed information. Now, what I'm going to suggest to you here is if you're a beginning golfer, you're starting to learn to play the game of golf, if you watch one video and focus on this one video for the rest of your life, make sure it's this video. This is my sort of 4 best tips for a beginning golfer to try and get better at the game of golf. And the way we're going to start this is right down at the basics with some good fundamentals. Now, each part that I talk about today, there are more backup videos to support this information with a bit more information behind them. But these are the fundamentals that I would like you to start focusing on if you're a beginning golfer and you're starting your journey to be a better player. Start with a nice wide stance. I see a lot of golfers get into trouble by standing too narrow. They lose balance, they can't generate power. A nice wide stance, at least have the instep of your feet as wide as your shoulders for full swings. Have your feet relatively straight forwards, but maybe the front toe can be flared out slightly. We don't want to stand too much like this, it sets the knees in the wrong place. So front toe slightly flared out. Consider ball position. Ball position should be in the center of your stance for your shorter irons, moving towards your front foot, towards your front heel. For your longer clubs, if you go to a driver, it's going to be more over towards your front heel. Looking from down the line now, we want to set the club up behind the ball so that when the club rests on my lead leg, it lands just above my kneecap. If I was too close to the golf ball, it would be too high up on my leg. If I was too far away from the golf ball, it would be too low down. So from this position, knees lightly flexed, the club sits just above my kneecap. From a good position here, I've now got a nice posture. I've pushed my hips away, stood my chest up nice and tall. Anybody that sucks their hips under, rolls their spine, ends up in a poor posture position. So hips back, chest out and up, that's going to be a good posture position. Moving on from there, we want to relax the arms and hang them nice and straight down in front of us. And from a front-on view, have them slightly ahead of center. We really want to avoid having the hands behind and trying to scoop the golf ball, which is a pretty poor beginner's trait. From there, we can assess the grip. With the grip, we want to take the lead hand on top. When we look down, we want to have about ½ inch that we're not holding. I don't like to see people holding too high on the club. A couple of knuckles visible on the back of that lead hand and the lead thumb squeezed in next to the top of that index finger. Take the bottom hand, the trail hand, and drop it in nice and close. Now, if you're having a baseball grip, I don't mind if it's just touching, an interlinking grip or an overlapping grip. If you're not sure about your preference, go and research another video that's going to give you a bit more detail about how to get a good hold on the club. From there, we want to focus on grip pressure, not too tight, quite relaxed, maybe a 3 or 4 out of 10. As we start the swing, the grip pressure will increase, but it starts off nice and relaxed. That should have you setting up to the golf ball in quite a nice, solid address position. From there, I'm going to give you a couple of key checkpoints that you can work on. First one is good, smooth takeaway. We take the club back and we have the club so it sits directly on top of my hands at hip level. So if I'm looking at the camera or a mirror behind me, the club is on line. I haven't picked it up, I haven't rolled it inside. I've taken it back nicely here, mainly dominated by the shoulders, not much leg action. From here, we lift the club higher and higher and higher until you feel comfortable. Now, for a longer swinging golfer, maybe someone that's fitter, more agile, no injuries, they might be able to get the golf club all the way around so it points at 3 o'clock. For a shorter swinging golfer, maybe someone a bit older, maybe a back injury, they'll maybe swinging the club a little bit shorter. I'm not overly fussed whether you go to 3 o'clock or 1 o'clock. As long as you get it up past vertical, you're going to be able to generate some power. We'd like to keep the lead arm quite strong, so we don't have this sort of collapsing position here, but we have a nice shoulder turn, the lead arm quite strong. From there, I'd like your hips to start your downswing. Now, this is often a thought that people don't associate with a downswing. They think that once the club's here, they're going to hit with the hands and the arms and they're going to fire the hands and the arms down. Actually, what we'd like to focus on is from the top of the swing, the movement is the bottom half first, moving towards the target, then the hands and arms drop into position, then we start to turn the body weight through. And as we turn the body weight through, the trail heel is going to start to lift, the hips will rotate all the way to target, and we'll finish holding the club pointing down the way. Once you've got that finish position, you'll notice that your start position becomes very consistent every time, and your finish position becomes very consistent every time. All the body weight loaded over the lead leg, the rear leg just up onto the tiptoe for balance, and try and hold that balance all the time the golf ball is in the air until it lands. And that's a great swing checkpoint that we're going to swing, hold, and wait for the ball to land. Okay, so from now we've got good fundamentals at setup, we've got some good swing checkpoints throughout the golf swing. What else can I give you as a beginner at this stage early on in your career to learn from? The next piece of advice would be short game, short game, short game. We all want to go to the driving range and hit that drive that goes 300 yards and it looks lovely and fancy. But what affects your score the most is going to be your short game. So spend at least 50% of your entire practice time, either on the driving range, the putting green, the short game area, focused on non-full shots. That might be 50-yard pitching wedges, it might be 20-yard sand wedges, it might be putting, it might just be reading greens or getting out bunkers. But make sure you're spending a good deal of your time, 50% of your total practice time, working on your short game. It's not glamorous, but I assure you when you go on the golf course, it will pay dividends in terms of bringing your golf scores down. Now, the next thing I'd really want you to focus on is that when you go to the driving range, you get the most out of your practice time. That doesn't just mean standing here beating balls as fast as you can and seeing how many you can hit in half an hour. What I'd like you to think about on the driving range is splitting your practice up into two different ways. One would be random practice and one would be blocked practice. So blocked practice is very much the sort of traditional, take 10 balls out of the bucket, hit 10 balls with a 7-iron, work on improving your swinging, your technique. So maybe use a mirror or a camera and go through those dedicated swing checkpoints to see whether you can improve your technical aspects. The next part of that practice was random practice. Now random practice is much more like it would be actually on a golf course, where we would take an iron, a wedge and a driver, for example, and with each of those swings we would try and do a different type of shot. So for example here I'm just going to grab my driver. So I've done my warming up, I've done my blocked practice, and now I'm going to think about how I can change my setup and my swing for each individual shot. So I'll tee the ball up nice and high for my driver, tee the ball up nicely towards my lead leg in a nice wide stance, and I've got my good posture. Everything's lined up looking nice. I'm going to make a nice smooth swing here with my driver. And I've held that balanced follow through position. All the body weight's come up onto the lead leg and I've turned through nicely. And hopefully I went through a couple of the checkpoints that we talked about in the early part of this video. The next part of my practice now, I can imagine that I'm playing a par 4 and I've hit my driver down the fairway. I'm now going to take a 9-iron. I'm going to hit my approach shot to the green. It's asking me to do a different job now. I've got a ball position in the centre of my stance. I'm a lot nearer to the golf ball. I can go through my same few checkpoints and hopefully I can hit a 9-iron to my intended target out on the range. And again, I'm holding my balanced follow-through position all the time the ball is in the air and it comes down. Now let's imagine in that situation that I've missed the green. So now I'm going to have to hit a completely different shot again. I'm now going to go down to my sand wedge. And from this position, it's a different type of shot. And again, we're focusing on practicing short game like we discussed. So in the short game, I stand a bit narrower, I have a shorter swing and a little shorter chipping action. And as I pitch the ball forwards, I imagine I'm hitting a little short game shot back onto the green. So in 3 shots there, I've associated myself with being on the golf course doing some random practice, a drive, a mid-iron and a short game shot. And if I can take that into my practice sessions and when I go on the golf course, I will feel like I practice all the different aspects that I need to work on when I go and play. So that's quite a lot of information to take on board. This video might take watching a couple of times. Isolate the bits that you think are important to yourself, whether it's the setup checkpoints, the swinging checkpoints, or the way you can practice to improve your golf. But hopefully this piece of information is going to last you well into your golfing career and hopefully help you improve from beginner to being a really good golfer.